Welcome back to another episode of the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Strength and Speed owner and Conquer the Gauntlet pro, Evan Perperis. I've got two guests joining me on the line. We're going to bring one of them on before we mention our episode sponsor. So joining me, I have Gary Shaw. Gary, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, Evan.
Gary is a member of the Strength and Speed development team, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about his background and some of this crazy stuff he's been up to, which has been pretty insane during this quarantine period. So a little bit of background about Gary. Started running and doing OCR in 2016. Ran in high school, but took a long break during the Navy and after. Previously ran a half marathon a day for a month back in July 2018. I remember following that on social media, which was pretty insane. And then, so 2020 race results, there hasn't been that many due to the coronavirus outbreak, but it finished fourth in the Post-Oak Challenge. 2019 race highlights, Swamp Stomper 50K, third place male. Post-Oak Heavy Marathon 50K Heavy Marathon Challenge, second place male. Shamrock's Beer Mile, second place overall. I'm sure many people will be impressed by that. Georgia Death Race Beer Mile, first overall. We got a ultra runner / beer mile specialist on the show. Knock on Wood 100 miler, first place male. 24-hour Enduro World Championship out in Australia, 12th elite male. Pumpkin Holler 100, 8th overall. Fast and Furious Canicross 5K, first overall. And then other than that, for OCR stuff, he's done Warrior Dash St. Louis, where he finished third overall in 2018. Done World's Toughest Mudder twice, 2017, 2018, and got 60 miles. So, Gary, welcome.
Thanks.
All right, now let's jump into today's sponsors before we bring on our other guest. This episode is brought to you by Squirrel's Nut Butter. So Squirrel's Nut Butter is an anti-chafing product you smear anywhere there could be chafing, which is usually the groin area. But they also have trail toes type spread where you can actually put it on your toes to prevent chafing down by your feet. So I'm a big fan of it. I like the stick. It's like a deodorant type stick. You just kind of apply it directly on. There's also comes in a little tub. The tub works good, and it's better if you're going to be sharing it because you don't want to share where that stick has been on me. So, Gary, what's your thoughts on Squirrel's Nut Butter?
I used it every day for the challenge, for the Run the Date challenge that I think you're going to have us go into later.
Yep.
I used it every day, and I had no problems. And yeah. I am very susceptible to chafing in the past, especially at Worlds. Anytime I'm in a wetsuit, my undercarriage burns off.
Yes, that's accurate.
S&B has definitely helped with that.
So I found the magic is Marina Sport shorts or pants with like the pouch for your junk there and a healthy dose of Squirrel's Nut Butter. And that's been my magic solution the last 2 years, and I've had zero chafing at World's Toughest Mudder. So any specific favorite product you have for them? Have you used their they have like a icy hot type product? Have you tried that?
I haven't tried their that icy hot type salve, but I prefer the deodorant stick.
Yeah.
And but I use the other as well. Just whenever I use the tub, I always put on a rubber glove to actually apply it. Just makes it easier.
Interesting. All right. I initially got the tub in the winter, and I did not like it because it felt like it was it felt too hard to apply. Like it felt like I was like really trying to force my fingers into it to get it to come out. But
yeah, you have to work in like pomade during the winter on the tub instead of the stick, I found out.
Okay.
But it works great.
The tub, once it got to summer, the tub works fine. Absolutely fine. But again, I still prefer the stick. And I have tried the icy hot type product. I can't remember what it's called. I think it works great. It's got a nice smell to it. It has a nice some capsaicin in there. Give it a nice tingling feeling. All right, let's bring on our other guest. So also joining us, we have Nicole Fleming. Nicole, say hi.
Hey, how are ya?
So a little bit about Nicole. She's the owner and operator of Healthy Bodies, primarily massage therapy, but she's also a certified health and personal coach, a mom of a 22-year-old daughter, a dog mom, and may have been raised by wolves. As you can see, I'm reading her bio, and I did not proofread it ahead of time, so that's good. She's been active her whole life and didn't really get back into training for any specific events until early 30s. She's now 46. Pretty impressive list of accomplishments here. Second female at Tougher Mudder 2019 in Wright City, Missouri. Seventh overall female and first Masters female at World's Toughest Mudder 2018 in Atlanta, Georgia. First female at Hawk 100 2018 in Lawrence, Kansas. Runner-up Mud Run Guide's Best Female Masters Athlete 2018. Mud Run Guide's Badass Women of OCR Featured Athlete. That's one of those articles that Charity Fick writes for Mud Run Guide back in February 2019. And first female Masters in Abominable Snow Race 2019 in Wisconsin. First female at Shamrock's Beer Mile in Springfield, Missouri. Sixth overall female, including the pros. First Masters female at OCR World Championships 24-hour Enduro 2019 in Sydney, Australia. And a couple more other awesome challenges. And she also did, as we've already hinted at, the Run the Date Challenge, which Gary and Nicole did this month, where whatever the date was, that's how many miles they ran for the day. So on the first, they ran 1 mile, second 2 miles, all the way up to 30. So, and if you can't do math real quick, that is, I think it comes out to about 465 miles.
Yes, it does.
I believe it's 165 in the last week. Is that right?
That sounds right.
Yeah, it's a lot. I mean, it's like an exponential curve there. It gets pretty insane towards the end.
It's a false.
That's when the squirrel's nut butter came in extra handy. I like the tub, actually, because I use it a lot with my bra with chafing.
Okay.
And the tub is super handy with that. And I usually don't chafe, but just running all those days in a row, and it was a wet month in April, it made a big difference. I don't usually like chafe on feet, but I used it on my feet and everything too. And it saved me for sure.
Awesome. Yeah. So that's good. Different perspective. Someone who likes the tub rather than the stick, but yeah.
And
so
it was 189 miles the last week.
189.
I was going to say, I thought it was more. Gary's the number person though.
I think what happened was I think when it was like 5 days left or something, I did the math, and that's why that number is stuck in my head. But which is actually not right either, but that's fine. Whatever. All right, so let's jump into we're going to be talking about their Run the Date Challenge. We're going to be talking about Beer Mile. We're going to talk about Ultra Sports during this episode. So let's start off with the most recent thing, right? The Run the Date Challenge. Gary, where did this idea come from? And then after that, Nicole, answer, how did you get talked into this? Or was it the other way around?
Okay, so this idea actually, I'm not really sure where it just came from. It just kind of came out of nowhere. Originally, I was going to try and do a body fat reduction challenge for myself about once or twice a year. I just pick something. I do these, what I call do dumb shit challenges. And I try and do it once or twice a year. And it's just something kind of extreme. Like my buddies at work, I mean, I tell them I ran a half marathon last week. They think that's crazy. But whenever I do one of these challenges, I look for something that other athletes would actually say that's stupid too. So I was originally going to try and cut down to a single digit body fat prior to my birthday, starting after my 200 miler that got canceled. And whenever the 200 miler got canceled and things started kind of to change because of the coronavirus, I just got to thinking about what I was going to do. I really didn't have anything to train for specifically. And plus, for the body fat percentage challenge I was looking at doing, all the gyms are closed. There was really not as much I could do. So I tried to think of something just to kind of pass that time and give my running career a little bit of a challenge. So this just kind of popped up in my head. It kind of stemmed from originally almost thinking, well, I could do something like the half marathon a day again, but then I thought I'd already done it. So I just kind of mentioned it to Nicole, thinking that maybe we might do it later in the year. She kind of thought, well, why not just do it now since nothing's going on? So it was very coronavirus inspired.
Yeah, there seems to be a lot of that coronavirus insane challenge stuff kind of going on. And I feel like the ultra running community, along with the strongman community, are the two ones, as far as sports that I have like a touch point in, have been thriving during this and really been thinking outside the box. And we'll talk about that a little bit later. So Nicole, how did you end up getting roped into this?
So being a massage therapist, my business was deemed non-essential. So I didn't work for end of March and all of April. And so when Gary was talking about doing this, and again, thinking of doing it in the fall, I'm like, well, we're always racing or volunteering. I can't think of a time that would work well, and knew that now would be the time. And I was like, if you want to do it in April, I can join you. And for some reason, I'm not just super interested in the virtual races. I know it's getting a lot of people going, but it doesn't really do it for me. And I do know how to say no. Everyone's like, how'd you let Gary talk you into this? I'm like, he's done plenty of dumb shit before that I've said no to. Okay. So this one, I don't normally do well with a lot of miles and no rest. And I tried to do that early in my 30s. It didn't work so well. And having run several ultras since then, I was like, I wonder how I'll do now. And so I was kind of curious, experiment-wise, how I would feel going into this. So I was curious for myself, and just also had the time this month. And Gary and I usually have a good time doing these things together, and for some reason don't kill each other. So had a good time with it.
Nice. And I say talk you into this, but as we listed in your bio, you are an accomplished ultra runner and serious competitor. And I mean, in fact, like, you're a better athlete compared to the other females than Gary is compared to the other males, right? Like, I'm just going to throw it out there. It's just fact, right?
I don't know if it's in my old age category and I'm still going or what, but I don't know.
So, but yeah, I mean, yeah, very impressive. So you get, obviously the first 2 weeks are, not too bad. And then it starts increasing exponentially. Gary, like, take me through some of your strategy going into this, and then kind of how it played out.
So I really wanted to, it was very easy to kind of think, oh, this isn't that big of a deal. And really, I was really worried about burning myself out on the front end, because it's really easy to think I just have to do a mile or 2 miles today. So to really run them fast, and then even I did no cross training at all for that month. So I really wanted to prep myself from the very beginning, from that first day running 1 mile. I wanted to really prep myself for that last day of 30 by trying to just slowly ease into it and not get discouraged. It's really easy. A lot of people, especially that run competitively, like doing that transition from low mileage, like going from a 5K to 100 in those training blocks, a lot of people get self-conscious. They don't want people to see them walking or doing intervals during their training. If they're running on the road and people are driving by, they don't want people to see them walk, because they think people are looking kind of down on them, like, oh, he couldn't keep going. So it's easy for me, because I've done them long enough, to just get over my ego and put that stuff in the trash. So it was really just important to me to ease into it and try and maximize any time I had to rest, because I was working. I had to work the entire time. So on top of all these runs, I was doing my 8-hour day at work. I would go in, I'd wake up at 4, be in at 5, leave at 1, and then go run however many miles. So after that, I needed to plan time to eat and to really recover as best as possible, which included a lot of like saltwater soaks for my feet, or Epsom salt and essential oil soaks for my feet, and a lot of time with the Hypervolt, just trying to treat any problem areas.
Gotcha. And then how long did you kind of allocate per day, per mile per run or whatever?
So my plan was like, someone had asked me this the other day for a challenge that they were kind of doing for themselves. And time management was very important with this. So what I did was I figured every day's run as taking me, like, having an average pace of 15 minutes per mile. So I had...
And that includes pit and everything.
Yes. Yeah, that included our pit time and everything. So a running clock. So for the last day of the month, I had, 7.5 hours allotted for 30 miles.
Yeah. So I find that very smart. One, like your comments about being concerned about the last day on the first day, because right, I think everyone's gut reaction is like, oh, I'm only running a mile today. Let me just knock it out, run an 8-minute mile, we're done, or whatever, it's over. But, being concerned about the last day, the first day, was very smart. And then giving yourself a nice chunk of time also seems very smart to me, right? Because then you block it out on your schedule. And then if it only takes you, if you're running faster than that, you're fine, right? Because mentally you're prepared to spend more time on the road than you're actually spending. So
yep.
I think that's a really good move. Now, Nicole, what was your, as the situation developed, what were some of the surprises you may have encountered?
So with me not working, I kind of had the opposite strategy. I know we're only running 1, 2, 3 miles. So I did a ton of manual labor and projects that I haven't been able to do in years because I had time to do it. So on the first couple weeks, I was outside a lot, just mowing and raking and picking up sticks and clearing brush. And I knew I'd probably, not the smartest thing, but I mean, I would get like 8-9 hours sleep a night thinking it would be enough. And I was the lucky one, like towards the end, I was still getting a fair amount of sleep, where Gary, we may not get into bed till like 9:30, 10 o'clock at night, and he has to get up at 4, whereas I was able to like sleep until like 7 or 8. So I front loaded, but I just, even though this is going on, my life is still going on. So I still needed to get that stuff done. And I don't know if it's because of that, but already by like the end of the second week, I was kind of having stomach issues with like just nauseousness and trying to, I had to like be careful of what I ate. I usually eat a lot of like salads and vegetables and making dinner and stuff like that. I had to be conscious of just not having too much of that stuff, just with constantly running. So that kind of took me by surprise that was a challenge, but it kind of reminded me of like running 100-miler, about mile 80, your stomach starts to go south. That's what it reminded me of just getting later into the month. Gary has an iron stomach, so he was able just to like eat through everything and for the most part be okay. And I just had a really hard time with getting enough calories in to keep me going and wanting food. I just got so tired of forcing myself to eat, and which is kind of what you have to do in some of the long races, but I was surprised that was an issue with this challenge. Even on the days that we're running like 15, 18, 20, it was still an issue. So that was kind of surprising to me. Physically, I felt like I held up all the way through the month until the last week. We both did a really good job with like stretching and trying to take care and stuff like that in the evening, knowing that of all months, we can't get a lot of body work just because of things going on. So that kind of surprised me that I usually don't do well without rest and stretching and massage and stuff like that. And it really didn't bother me till the last week. And I did do something fun with my shins. I'm not sure what, but was able to push through to the end. but I think stomach stuff kind of took me the most by surprise, in trying to take care of that just even by the end of week 2.
Gotcha. Now, some of you listening to this may have heard of other people doing something around the same time. So right at the end of March, Steve Hammond, I think he's a trail race director for Spartan Trail, or he works some on Spartan, issued a challenge that was basically the same thing, run the date for the month of April. And I actually thought that's where, Gary, where you got the idea. So me and Jared Renier, personal trainer from J Run Fitness, we're talking about it in like a private message, and we're like, this is a really bad idea. Like people, like most people should not do this. This is someone who normally runs, like 20 miles a week is going to try this and just blow themselves up and come out injured. And then probably like 24 hours later, Gary, in our private strength and speed group, you're like, here's what I'm going to do in April. And I was like, all right. And honestly, the only person in the group who I would say, that's a reasonable challenge for you to do based off your experience is you, because you've done stuff like this in the past where you've done the 13 mile a day every day for a month, which comes out to, I think it's like 400 miles, right? Or something like that.
Like 406.
Yeah. So you've done a similar experience in the past. So going from 406 miles in a month to, 465 we determined or something. Yeah, that's not a huge jump. And it's been 2 years since you've done that. So your body has had some time to adapt, and it's not like you haven't been training and you've been putting in some good miles. So yeah, it was a bold move. If some of the other people in our strength and speed group were like, I'm going to do it too, I would have been like, yeah, you probably should not. That's a bad idea.
Right, isn't it crazy? And then like after the challenge, he whips out another 42 miles.
And
I lived through 5 miles of that and walked the rest of the loop, and I was like, I'm crewing. So he's the machine when it just comes to like regular mileage. And it's so interesting how, different people respond differently to training, and it's so interesting that you don't really know if that's you until you go out and do it. But Gary's definitely one of those people. He can just like consistently put in the miles, and I think he can do it for like months at a time. If you do it for like months and months and months, of course it'll catch up with you, but he does pretty good with stuff like that.
Yeah, it was impressive. And for those of you who missed that comment because it came out fast, on the 31st day, so the first day of May, Gary did a 40-mile, was it 40 or 42?
42. Our friend turned 42 on her birthday, and she had a running challenge. So.
42-mile run. So that puts your 31-day total at 507. 507. Again, insane. That is very impressive. Yeah.
Yes.
Once races resume and you switch back to normal sports or normal ultra running and obstacle course racing, what are some lessons that you can take away from this challenge that you're going to apply to future endurance runs and endurance challenges?
I definitely learned some pit strategy, some fueling and pit strategy. Like Nicole said, I kind of have an iron stomach, but I found it's even with, having a good stomach and not getting upset with too much stuff, it is kind of important to change your nutrition up a little bit, especially over the long run, because I used to be a huge advocate. Everybody will tell you that if they saw me at an ultra, I had an oatmeal cream pie in my hand, and the sight of one of those just makes me near violent now. It's like I associate oatmeal cream pies with pain and anguish, and like they make me want to throw up. And I talked to a buddy of ours, a race director, Jeremy Harrison, was talking to him about that actually at the Outlaw 135 while Nicole was running. And he was talking about how after a while your body, like you get used to doing something, you do it so much and your body starts to associate it with something. So every now and then you will have to kind of change up your nutrition. Otherwise, like he was saying, you go to eat that oatmeal cream pie and your body just kind of rejects it because it knows what comes after. So
yeah, it's like Pavlov's dog, right? You're conditioning your body.
Yeah.
You hear the bell and you start salivating, or you eat the cream pie and your body's like, no, we're not doing this again. This is bad.
Yep, exactly. But so I learned some nutrition things, found some different foods that I like, found some kind of different pit strategies. So one of the things that we did on some of our runs were we did a lot of out and backs, like 5 out and 5 back. So what we would do is we would have our packs with us, and we would pack for, so 10 miles figure, at that 15-mile pace that I was allotting, at least 2.5 hours, and then kind of just in case the wheels fall off and you really have to walk or something happens, figure about 3 hours. So pack food with you, but whenever you get back to the car, we would actually pit, just like at Worlds. You kind of we're operating out of the trunk of a car. We would have stuff, ginger ale, like we would have a cooler, and then we would have Ziploc bags full of stuff. So really kind of learned how to speed up that process and kind of just problem solve or troubleshoot and figure out like what your priorities are. Like, what do I have on me? How long will that last? What do I really want? Like, what's more important? And I also discovered that I can stomach chocolate milk during a run. I know a lot of people that do milk during a run. Nicole's done that at all of her hundreds. And as good as my stomach is, dairy has always kind of scared me to run with. I've always thought, oh man, I just think of milk being in your stomach and running an ultra. You're just going to turn that to cottage cheese and get sick. And it works great.
Nice. Anything to add, Nicole, as far as kind of lessons learned you're going to take forward?
Yeah, it was just kind of a reminder for me that I do better undertrained than overtrained. As the miles just pounded on, I got slower and weaker, and I had no spring in my step. I do better with cross training and not a ton of miles. And then I can go to an event like Outlaw 135 and run through 2 nights and feel strong the whole time. Like I might have stomach issues but it was just a reiteration to me that I don't do well with a ton of miles and no rest. And it was also kind of surprising to me, even though we were allotting 15 minutes per mile, like when we were on the road or on Frisco, which is a flat trail, we were still with pit staying under like 11, 12-minute miles, even stopping like 5 minutes at the car or every 5 miles or hour. Even on hilly roads and stuff like that, we would stop and walk and eat for like maybe a quarter mile and then go again. So I was kind of surprised we were able to keep that pace, just even with eating and all the miles. And when we get on the trail, we keep it probably under 13, even with pits. And I was surprised as much as I like slowed down and felt just like a human sloth that until like the last couple days, we're able to keep up with that pace, even with all the stopping and stuff. So that kind of surprised me. But for the most part, it was just reminding me that all those miles was not great training for me.
So you said you don't like a lot of volume during your training, but you obviously you still do well at these ultras, these 100 miles and stuff, like 100-mile races. What's your normal training volume, or like, you're prepping for a race? What's a weekly training volume look like?
I couldn't even tell you. Gary makes fun of me and laughs at me because I don't even have a training plan. And I think I've had training plans in the past, and, I'll put in long runs on the weekends, like 15 to 30 miles, maybe one or both days. But during the week, like maybe I'll run 2-3 times, 5-7 miles. I walk the dogs a lot. Even during this challenge, I was walking the dogs a couple miles every morning. So, throw those miles on top of everything else. But I will do like a plyometric fitness class for an hour, because I can't make myself go speed training. So a bunch of like plyo lunges and jump squats and things like that. And then I'll do a strength training class a week with weights. And then I'll do like a yoga class during the week. And I mean, whatever that adds up to mileage wise, what kind of keeps me on top of training is I'll do a couple races each month, and that kind of pushes me, you know? So I'm not just like with Outlaw 135, you know, I'm not building up 3 months and that's like my A race. You know, I'll still have a couple races here and there, and sometimes I'll pace someone, a friend, during a race just to have time on feet, do a 50K or 50 miler with them. And that just keeps me accountable. And, but I'm not one that kind of has like, I'm doing this many miles a day and this is how many I'm going to do in the week, and I'm going to build up, and I kind of know when to taper and hold back. And I kind of know when, like, okay, my body needs to be pushed right now, or I need rest. I go on feel a lot. And so far it's worked, except for this last month.
Gotcha. Now, you did say something I love in there. That was the back-to-back long run days. So, you know, I'm a huge fan of that. I think in my book, Ultra-OCR Bible, that's what I recommend. You know, basically Saturday, Sunday, do 2 long runs.
Oh, definitely.
And
definitely.
I think you know, teaches your body to run fatigued. You get a lot of adaptation, and then it doesn't, you know, like you're doing, you do those 2 long runs on the weekend, and your body, then during the week, your body has time to adapt from that stress, and you're basically what you're doing is putting in maintenance miles in the week.
Yes. Yeah.
So your body remembers how to run. But I mean, the big changes are happening on that weekend. So I think that's,
and that way you can stay on top of the speed and the quickness during the week. And on the weekend, like, it's funny between the long miles on Saturday and Sunday. Saturday, like, you're a superstar, and Sunday you're like, what the heck is happening? Why is this so hard? It was so easy yesterday. So it is nice to know what it feels like to run on tired miles, on tired legs, and keep going. You have to find a way mentally and physically to keep going. And that is good training for longer distances, for sure.
I think that's better for, at least for me, right? Like, you know, I think some people will see people's runs online where it's like, I ran 35 miles today, but then like they don't post the rest of their runs the rest of the next 2 weeks because they're not running, right? Like they just blow it out one day and then they're like, and I'm done, right? Like, I think it's better to do smaller, manageable chunks where you can keep motivated and you can stay.
And you're less prone to get hurt, I think.
I agree with that also. So, although I do think you should follow a plan, so I don't recommend that. But
you know what? I think I've followed plans for so long, even though I'm not officially following a plan. Like, in my head, I kind of know what's going on.
That's true. Okay, so I agree, because I am probably the same way, right? Like I don't have my plan written out on a piece of paper, but it's like in my head, and I'm tweaking it and going off feel as I'm training. Yeah. Okay. All right. Much better. All right. All right. Now, we mentioned Gary having an iron stomach. Also noticed in his race results, and Nicole, you as well, seems to be doing pretty well in the beer mile. So first off, explain for those of the listeners who don't know what a beer mile is. Explain what a beer mile is.
All right. So a beer mile consists of, like, sometimes it'll be like on a public street, like they'll, like, race directors or whoever's got it going on will kind of cordon off an area. And sometimes if they can get, you know, cooperation from a local track or whatever, they'll be done on a track preferably. But you know, they sound the gun, you chug a beer, run a quarter mile, chug a beer, run a quarter mile, chug a beer, run a quarter mile, chug a beer, run a quarter mile. And for what they consider like a regulation beer mile, the beer has to be either canned or bottled, unopened, and has to be 5% alcohol by volume or greater. And if you vomit, that's permitted, but you have to do a penalty lap. And if you vomit again, like say you vomit multiple times, it doesn't matter. You just have to do the one penalty lap at the end. Gotcha. So you end up doing a mile and a quarter instead of a mile for your time.
And while you're drinking, is there like kind of like the relay where there's like a zone you can drink in? Can you like walk a couple steps, or do you have to stay perfectly still?
They actually have, it's usually, I can't remember what regulation size is, but I want to say it's about a 10-foot, what they call transition area, where you're actually allowed to drink your beer.
All
So
right.
you can kind of, and most people do, it's kind of hard to go from running, because a beer mile it's a full throttle race, generally. So coming kind of to that complete stop and then trying to choke down beer, like it's almost, you have to walk almost, or at least I do. You're kind of pacing through that transition area as you're trying to drink.
So what's your beer mile PR, and then what's your regular running mile PR with no beer?
I can't remember my PR. I want to say I can't remember off the top of my head. I want to say it's around 9 minutes. It could be under, could be a little bit over. I really can't remember, but it was at the Georgia Death Race there. I remember that, and I was drinking Natty Ice was what I used for that. But my actual mile PR is, I think, 5:50, something like that.
Okay, so yeah, that's a substantial time addition with the addition.
I want to say, baby, your Shamrock's mile has got to be faster than that, because mine was 8 something, and you were way faster than me. So I bet your Shamrock's one was better time than 9 minutes.
So Shamrocks, though, what she's talking about is we've both done that.
Yes. I know what you're going to say.
Regulation beer mile. It's a 1 mile distance. It has the transition area and everything like that, except they're not full beers. So they're not the full 12 ounces that you're supposed to have, and they're pre-opened. They're actual pours. They're in cups.
So it's not as carbonated, which is a humongous difference.
Right. Yeah.
That's a huge thing. That, and like I said, depending on which cup you grab, it can be hardly anything at all, and it's usually, I think it's Coors Light, I think, is what they use, and nothing against Coors Light, but for a regulation beer mile, it has to be 5% ABV or higher. And Coors Light, like Bud Light, Natty Light, all of those are going to be about 4.2, maybe 4.4%. So your times are going to be a lot faster at an event like that than at the regulation beer mile. But yeah, she's right. I can't remember my Shamrock's time either, but yeah, it really adds time drinking those 4 beers.
So what's your secret to success here? Any tips for anyone else going out and tackling the beer mile? Either one of you?
I would say practice makes perfect.
That is exactly what I was going to say, because it's funny that, I mean, what a horrible thing to say about a beer mile, but it's true. Like, we used to be, before this past month, we'd have a beer run that we do once or twice a month, and it's about a little over 4 miles, and we may stop at a spot every mile and a half and drink a beer. And when I first joined and then would drink a beer and run, I'm like, holy goodness, this thing is sloshing around in my stomach. But then by the 3rd or 4th beer run, like, you just got into the groove of it. Like, it wasn't that big a deal anymore. And you have to learn how to burp it. Like, if a burp gets stuck, you're screwed. And so practice makes perfect. You just kind of get used to it. It's like, it doesn't slosh around in your stomach so much anymore. And you just learn how to, like, run and burp. And I'm not a humongous chugger, so I try and just make up for it speed wise, but I love beer, so I can drink like 4 pretty quickly. But just that sloshing around in the beginning that took some getting used to.
Gotcha.
It's all about being able to burp.
Yeah. I have not done a beer mile. I did have a beer during I did the Dopies Challenge at Disney World. We do a half marathon one day, and then you do a full marathon the next day. And I did drink beer at they had like a beer station at mile 20. And I remember going from like, oh, this tastes great and I feel great, to like, now I feel terrible, all within like 10 minutes. Like, I felt like my body processed it hyper quickly, and I was like, had like a beer high for like a couple minutes, and then I was like, I don't really feel so good anymore.
You know what? Like, I'll definitely drink a beer or 3 like during my ultras, because I get so tired of just like the sweet fuel, and just to get something different in me calorie wise. At Georgia Death Race, when it was super hot, I remember like 3 aid stations in a row. I had people were giving me like their secret stash of their local beers, and I had been nauseous, and it tasted so good. It got rid of my nauseousness, but because I had so many in a row, it made me kind of sleepy. But if I normally just have like one during a race, like mile 30, mile 50, whatever, like I think because my metabolism is going so much, like I don't even hardly feel the buzz at all. It just feels so good to like have something different that tastes like kind of bitter, and it's cold and it's a little bubbly, and it usually calms my stomach down. So I like them actually during super long runs.
Interesting.
During 100, I'll usually do one every 25 miles. Like she was saying, it's kind of like, I call it liquid bread. It's just quick, easy to digest carbs for kind of a short burst of energy to get me out of a slump.
Interesting. I don't drink anymore, so if I think I had one now during a race, I would be a complete mess. Right? Like we went, I did Toughest Mudder UK. It was like 2 years ago, and we went to the Guinness Brewery in Ireland like a couple days later, and I drank like one Guinness, and I was like tipsy. It was so embarrassing. My wife was like laughing at me.
That's okay. I hear it hits different over there at the brewery itself.
Sure. Yeah. Let's go with that. Let's
see.
Yeah. No kidding. So yeah, that's interesting. I'd not say I'd recommend beer for mid race, but I mean,
I recommend it.
If it gets you through. I mean, your ultra results speak for themselves. So I guess who am I to argue? Before, I want to talk a little bit more about some of your obstacle course racing background and plans. Quickly before, though, I mean, obviously we've talked about all these crazy endurance stuff you guys have done in the past. Gary, just give me a quick background, like on some of your running and training background over the last couple of years and kind of how it led to where you are today. And then we'll go with Nicole.
So this got out of hand very quickly. Like whenever I kind of started running, I wanted to do a warrior dash. You know, it was just, and I will always miss warrior dash of everything I've done with the ultras and even traveling overseas and doing races and stuff. Warrior dash is probably my favorite old OCR. It's what got me started. It's what kind of got me off the couch. So my first race was actually what do they call a color run, a local color run to kind of see if I could even, before I did a 5K with obstacles, I wanted to see if I could just do a 5K period. And then after like 2 weeks after that color run, I did that warrior dash and just kind of fell in love with it and started training for other races. So from the time I actually, it didn't take me long to get into ultras though. Once I found them, I still like to do 5K every now and then, but I don't do them nearly as much as I used to. But I started running in February of 2016, and December of 2016, I did my first ultra. And I mainly focused on ultras since then, whether it be OCR or just, traditional running. But training wise, I tell people that I try to stay marathon ready all the time. Like I always say, like if I have a buddy that says, hey man, would you be interested in doing this marathon? I had already signed up for it, but I ended up winning a drawing. So I have this free race entry if you want it. I always want to, at the drop of a dime, I want to be able to go do a marathon. And if you can do a marathon, I tell everybody that if you can do a marathon, you can do a 50K. It just, that last 5 miles, you just kind of, if you've got enough guts in you to do the 26, you can eke out another 5 generally.
So for someone, let's say someone just got into running and is interested in going a similar route, like they're interested in the ultra route, what advice would you give to them?
Definitely do start slow. I know that was one of the things that got brought up whenever I was even talking about doing the Run the Date challenge. Was people were saying, oh, that's upping your weekly mileage exponentially, which isn't recommended. Definitely do start slow going into it. And like I said, don't get discouraged by walking, especially if you're going to do ultras. Like, there is walking in ultras. I do it. Everybody does it to an extent. Even the guys that are going out busting 18-hour 100s, they're power hiking some of those steeps. But I would start off low on mileage and just kind of slowly work yourself up. And then a big thing for me is to find a way to keep yourself accountable. And mine is if I post something on social media, if I do something to bring attention to it, odds are, barring an injury, it's going to happen. Like, the 2 ways to get my attention on anything is make it affect my wallet or make it affect my ego. So, I mean, it's going to take a lot for me to just quit something midway through if I've, made a big deal about it on like Facebook or whatever, or told all my buddies at work.
Yeah, there's self-imposed peer pressure by publicly stating your goals that you're like, well, I literally have no choice now. Yeah.
Yep.
So good stuff there. All right, Nicole, give me a quick kind of some of your background and rundown of your.
Yeah, I kind of fell into obstacle course racing by accident. I had a friend whose husband's friend dropped out of a Tough Mudder, and she's like, he needs a partner next weekend, and okay, and just had a really good time with it. And I kind of found I was like, being able to go across the monkey bars was a big deal. And I've always been kind of stronger than a lot of women. I was just raised in the woods and playing in the trees, and was always like doing a ton of manual labor as a kid. And so I've always been strong. So it was fun to go out and kind of have like a test of my strength at these obstacle course races. And I've always loved running. Never really got into longer distances until like 2013. To me, you can either go faster or go longer. And so I have more fun going longer. And had joined like a running club at Fleet Feet. And runners are a frickin' bunch of enablers. You get in with a group of runners, and to me, that's like, if someone's new to running, join a local running group, because you'll find you're not the only one that's struggling. You'll find you're not the only one that's like having a bad day or whatever, and it just keeps it fun. And so next thing you know, you're doing this, and then you hear your friend is doing this, and this other runner, oh, had you heard about this race? And next thing you know, you're doing 100-miler. Thanks, Gary and Jeff, and so it's just funny how you don't plan for it, but it just kind of happens. And to me, to keep going for the long haul, it's keeping it fun. And when I'm doing these races with friends and hearing about other races that are fun, that's what keeps me motivated and keeps me going and loving it, is that I'm having a good time doing it.
Right on. Good answer. Now, obviously, with the coronavirus, most of the races have been canceled through early June. And then, after June, we're hoping things kind of get somewhat, or get back to a new normal, or maybe back to normal, kind of see what happens. But let's assume kind of mid-June moving forward, things are quote unquote normal. Nicole, what do you have planned for 2020?
So our next event, we're doing the Mohican 100-miler. It's a Western States qualifier. That's June 20th, 21st. We didn't get into Western States with the lottery, neither of us did. So each year we're trying to do another Western States qualifier. And in July, we have a Spartan Ultra. Is that right, babe? I've never done a Spartan, so I'm kind of curious how that's going to go. I got myself signed up for Dirty Con's a 200 miler, which is a gravel cycling event, which I used to do a lot more mountain biking when I lived in Vermont. So that's going to be a challenge for me because I haven't done that in a while. And our Scotland trip got canceled. Our big ultra did for the end of May. So that was going to be a highlight of this year, and that didn't happen. Yeah, we usually have kind of a big race.
Coming back to World's Toughest in Dallas?
No. It was
what about Killington, Spartan 24-hour Ultra Beast? No?
So the one in July, we're going to kind of check that one out and see how that goes. I think that was like 30 something miles. Is that right? With and then we'll see how that one goes, and then maybe sign up at the end of the year, depending on how that one goes. I like OCR events and such, but things like Conquer the Gauntlet, that was the hardest OCR I've ever done. I don't do well with I need to put more time in, and I just don't with things like the pegboard or Stairway to Heaven. I can kind of muscle my way through certain things, but that's like skills, and I just need to work more on that. And it's hard being a massage therapist when I use my arms and hands a lot, and then at the end of the day go try and train that stuff even more. It's kind of like a runner that's already putting a lot of miles in during the day, go to try and put some quality miles in at the end of the day when they're already tired, so I kind of struggle with that. That's why some of the harder OCR stuff I'm still kind of up in the air about. I have a fun time with it, but I'm not sure how super seriously I want to take it. So
okay,
remains to be seen.
That's good. You answered my next question, but a different question. When you did Conquer the Gauntlet, did you run Continuum or did you run the Elite Wave?
I did the Elite Wave. I had just come off of a big event. I can't even remember what it was now. So I didn't do the Continuum because maybe I'd just come off of a 100-miler. It feels like it was at the end of a block of a bunch of big races. So Gary did the Continuum, and I had just done the Elite Wave. So,
gotcha. Which one did you end up doing? Which location was that?
Where was it, babe? I don't remember.
Iowa.
Iowa.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, that was the weekend of Toughest Chicago last year. So
yep.
I was not there. I was in Chicago.
Yep, because I had actually had good hopes on that one for Continuum, and ended up getting pretty much taken out by Smooth Criminal. It had rained a little bit, and I took a slip, and I thought I had actually broke my leg.
Oh, geez.
And actually ended up I kind of bowed, I just stepped off the course, and I went and found one of the directors and talked to him, and gave him my bib number and let him know what was up. Told him I thought I was okay, but I just wasn't going to push it. And then had a beer, sat and sulked for a little bit, and kind of tried to walk it off, and ended up I was able to re-enter the course where I exited, and ended up finishing the one lap. So I got one lap, but yeah, the extra money for Continuum, that was just a donation at that point.
But
I'm surprised how well you can do at OCR events if you're a decent runner, though. Yes, you have to have upper body strength and do well. But I was surprised even not being able to complete a couple obstacles, and of course, getting my belt removed because of that. But still where I came in after trying several times, still where I came in and finished, I was like, how can I be this far up in the front? This stuff is really hard. But I think if you're just a decent runner, and have some decent strength, you'll do pretty well at those events.
That is 100% true. Most of the races you're running. So, and then the obstacles, again, depending on the series you're at, sometimes the obstacles are just not difficult, right? If you're a generally fit person, you can just wing it.
Yep.
Right.
In Australia, that's a 24-hour one. So it's like doing World's Toughest Mudder. But just to keep being able to keep running and fueling and running and fueling. And I mean, yes, you're climbing ropes and going over walls. And I mean, during the middle of the night when things were slippery and muddy, you know, burpee penalties for not doing it, but, you know, still being able to get like a lot of laps in by just being able to continue and go. I was surprised, you know, the things were challenging, but they weren't impossible, you know, and that was just, it's like a big playground for adults. It was really fun, actually.
Yeah, absolutely. And ever since I got involved in obstacle course racing back in, I'd say I really started getting involved at the end of 2014. I've just been waiting for like a surge of serious runners to come in and just like completely blow the doors off everything. And it just hasn't happened. I think part of the problem, at least for me, is like the obstacles I find most of the time I find very easy. So if someone's having trouble with it and they're an athlete, right? Like they're a runner, like I have trouble understanding that they're even having trouble, right? It's just like, what do you mean you can't do the 8-foot wall? Like, I don't understand what, like, why you can't do that. It's just like not a thing. But you know, if you never train,
penalty and you go on, you know.
Yeah, but if you never train upper body, then you know some of those runners are just.
This is true.
And then I think there's also just you know that you hear about mud and electricity on some of the courses and you know extreme conditions, and I think it's just a different environment, right? Like. You know, if you're running a road marathon and you get like a rock in your shoe, people are like, "Oh, I stop and take out the rock." Like if I'm running an OCR and there's a rock in my shoe, I just keep running, right? Like there's always rocks in my shoe. What do you mean? What do you mean? You know, or like mud. Like, yeah, there's always mud in my shoe. It's just the way it is.
Mud's the fun part.
Yeah. So
I think a lot of that is I think there are some runners out there that would do extremely well in OCR. But I think a lot of those runners are kind of just running purists. Like I heard you listening to one of your podcasts the other day with Spartan Pro Emmy.
Oh yeah.
Like you were talking about how you have like Spartan purists that like only do Spartan races and like Tough Mudder purists that like kind of only do those races. I think the same thing goes with just regular running. Like you have people that will only do just standard running. Like they won't do color runs. They won't do anything that they kind of would deem as what I refer like a gimmick.
Yeah.
And I think the sad thing about that is if they would just kind of get over that, I think a lot of those people could do amazing things in OCR.
I completely agree, but I'm okay with them staying away because then I do better. So
I'm not gonna beg them to come over.
But their loss. I'll keep doing well for myself. Yeah, I agree with that. I've had the same conversation with Jarrett Newby from Noob Sanity. I don't think we didn't have it recorded, but it was during the first OCR America I did back in 2016. And he comes from a track background, so he had and track and cross country background, and also motocross. But so he had some interesting perspectives on it, and just like you said, they're just like, well, I just I'm a runner. That's what I do. I don't do this other thing, right? Like, and on the flip side, right, I've swung to the opposite direction right now. Like, I consider myself an obstacle course racer, and I won't race. I'll do an ultra, but I won't race an ultra, right? So like I'll use it as a training run and run a 50K on a weekend, but I probably didn't taper.
Have you only done like one actual, just like regular marathon?
Have I done one regular marathon?
Yeah. Haven't you only done one regular marathon?
I've done like 18 or so marathons.
Oh, really?
I've only done one. I've done 100 miler.
Okay. That's what it was.
Yeah.
Where was that?
I did Brazos Bend in kind of near Houston.
Yeah. We helped a friend down there at that one.
Yeah, it's a good one. You run by a bunch of alligators.
Yeah, if that's your thing.
At you. Yeah.
I wrestled one. It was actually a plastic alligator, but whatever.
Okay, that's better. Yeah. I mean, they're close to the trail. Like if you fell off the trail and then like rolled a couple feet, like you would bump into them.
Oh yeah, you
it was disappointed. I never got to see one.
You didn't get. I mean, if you would have gone on did you go on the trail? I mean, they're literally everywhere.
Yeah, like I did.
When we were there, it was like a ton of rain, so I think that's what it was.
Oh. I mean, I can't even count the number I saw, like 30 per lap. I don't know, something like that. You know, it's some insane number, right? Like they're everywhere. So
Wow.
it got to the point where you're just like, yes, there's alligators. I'm aware of that. Like, I don't care.
It's like around here in Copperheads.
Nicole, did you run what was it? Gary, you were manning an aid station for a 100-miler that I was pacing Billy Richards for last year. Nicole, were you running that, or were you at the aid station also?
What was this at Prairie Spirit or which?
In Kansas.
It was the fall. It was the fall.
The Kansas Rails to Trails. Yeah,
yes.
Yeah. We were both there at the depot, the training depot.
Oh, okay.
Whenever you guys came back through, though, she had left.
Okay.
Because I can't remember what we had.
I had a race the next weekend. Yeah,
so I stayed at the aid station like the full time that the aid station was open, but I think she left like right around sunset.
Okay, so I remember, because I remember meeting you before.
Ended up coming out to help me.
I remember meeting you before the race started, and then I let Billy Richards start running. I did KC Field of Burn Challenge, a 2-mile OCR, and then came back that evening, ran 20 miles to the aid station, and took a nap. Met up with Gary, and then I paced Billy Richards back in for the last 20 miles. So
that's awesome. Sorry to miss that. I ended up getting called out in the middle of the night to rescue another runner, but no, I was not there.
Okay. Gotcha. All right.
We're gonna right before your Ozark Trail.
Oh yeah. That was my yep, that's what it was. I don't do well with like missed sleep every weekend, so I tried to get out of there by midnight. I remember that, but It all worked out in the end anyway.
Gary, what do you have planned for the rest of 2020, assuming things go back to normal?
Got Mohican 100, got a couple I'm not sure if it'll actually happen this year. Once a year, I kind of do an underground kind of RD, a beer half marathon. Not sure if that'll happen this year or not. I would like it to, but so that's still kind of up in the air. But have a couple of beer miles, pacing a friend at Honey Badger 100 in July. Then the weekend after that, we've got the Spartan Ultra, helping Nicole out at Dirty Kansas 200. And so you had talked about the Spartan Ultra World Championship, which I originally had high hopes of, and things just kind of went south on it. I had really wanted to do it, and I had really hoped that it was going to still be in Sweden, there in Ari. And by the time they finally announced it, because I think it's September 16th, or no, September 19th now, and it's back in the States, which monetarily is awesome, but kind of lure is not as much.
Yeah.
And plus already signed up for Highlander Assault, the King Arthur Challenge there in Woodstock, Illinois.
Ah, right on. I should be there.
Yeah, cool. We're both doing that. That'll be the weekend after my Dirty Kansas, so that'll be interesting.
Man.
All right.
So, but
it's on my bucket list for a while.
It looks great, and I've met the RD for it there at Battlegrounds whenever Battlegrounds was still going on.
Yeah.
Met him there and talked to him again there whenever we did Abominable Snow Race, and I'll just give a free plug to those guys. Abominable Snow Race, if you haven't done it, is just friggin' amazing.
So fun.
It got
in the snow, guaranteed, but so fun.
And it was just awesome. Bill Wolf, the RD, is a great guy and puts on a fun event. But got Kansas Rails to Trails, what you were talking about with that you paced Billy on. I'll be volunteering there again. Like, I always try and volunteer at that race and some other races. I try and do 3 or 4 shifts a year, kind of volunteering, just trying to give back a little bit, because I use the hell out of the volunteers and the aid stations at races. So if I
and that's
didn't
just
do
the
it
big races. We do a lot of volunteering at little small local ones. So it's just fun to still be out there, but not actually be racing.
And haven't signed up yet, but hoping to probably do a double at Pumpkin Holler, where I did my first sub 24 100 last year. They have it's kind of a full weekend, but instead of doing the 100 this year, do the 50K on Saturday, and then do a 70-mile gravel ride the next day, which would be my first bike race. But really, other than that, it's Dinosaur Valley Endurance Run. As long as that still happens in November, I'm actually going there to pace a fellow Strength and Speed member. I'm going to go up there and help Evan Perperis.
Oh, nice.
And Nicole's going there to help one of our friends pace her for her first 100. And then going to end the year out with 4 for 30, which is a last man standing event. That's actually a golden ticket event for Big's Backyard Ultra, with a lot of people are starting to kind of get in on that. Even people that don't run. There are people that I work with that have absolutely no aspirations of ever running that follow Big's Backyard Ultra or any event like that. They just like to see other people suffer for hours upon hours. So nice. I've raced that the past 2 years and come in third. Well, technically, it's a last man standing event. So if you don't win it, you DNF.
All right.
But
but still,
you third the last 2 years. And so this year, Nicole and I are just going to kind of help the RDs. We're going to kind of do a social media takeover for them for 4 for 30. I think Nicole's going to kind of do some write-ups for their Facebook, and then I'm going to do some lives. And we've got some cool little things planned that we won't talk about yet, but it should be a very interesting event. Looking forward to that. And I'm really hoping, and I've talked to you about this before, what I would really like to see kind of in the future of OCR is some kind of last man standing event, like that similar format, like maybe a 5K course. So 3.1 miles, say, with 15 obstacles, but then do that last man standing format.
Oh, that would be interesting. Yeah.
I would love to see that, because right now, I don't know, like Atkins, and I mean, Atkins is just up there. Like so much, it's kind of like some of the old NASCAR racers that just like, I remember it at a time whenever Jimmy Johnson was just, even if you were a fan of Jimmy Johnson, he was just winning so much you almost wanted to root against him just to see somebody else win. And Atkins is a stand-up guy. Anytime I've ever met him, he's just been amazing. But I wonder if a change in format would kind of level the playing field, or hell, I mean, it may make it even easier for him to win. Who knows?
Yeah, that might be the case. I mean, he's undefeated in Ultra-OCR for his entire career, which stems back to World's Toughest Mudder 2013. And it's not like, oh, well, he's avoiding the big races, or he's only like, he was going to all the big races all the time. So, I mean, he didn't go to every single one, but I mean, he went to the majority of them. So, yeah, insane. All right, you also, I think that last man standing format would be interesting for OCR, but also I think a beer mile version OCR would be interesting. I want to say they did a unofficial one in 2015 at OCR World Championships, kind of when the, kind of in between events towards the end of the weekend. But I think that's the only one I've ever heard of. and
That's awesome.
doesn't seem to have caught on.
So what obstacles did they do, or was it kind of like a fitness or workout station, like burpees or something like that, and pull-ups?
I want to say, so I wasn't there at that year, but I want to say they just took the OCR. They were filming OCR Warrior there, which is essentially is their short course. So I mean, I think it's probably like a K. I don't know, and I think they did a couple of beer stations in the course. We'd have to grab Brett Stewart or someone that was there to get the details.
Okay.
But
I think I remember OCR Warrior. You were on OCR Warrior once, right?
I was back in 2015.
Against another Evan, wasn't
That's right.
it?
Evan Dollard, the winner of American Gladiators, and he's also been on Ninja Warrior a couple times, and he beat me pretty thoroughly. That was like my 5th race. So I was pretty happy I just didn't embarrass myself, to be honest with you.
You had problems on the rig, didn't you?
I did, yeah. They had a skull on there, and I made it. You had to go essentially out and back on the course, and I made it out fine. And on the way back, I basically got stuck there. And
was that like a kind of like Skull Valley?
So yeah, it was like the beginning of Skull Valley, and then it was like a normal rig for like 3 or 4 holds, and then it was the end of like more Skull Valley. And the middle holds were basically like they were balls, and then the middle hold was a skull, so it was like a big ball basically. So
okay.
So yeah, I actually from that I bought one, and I've trained on it, and I've never had to use that specific hold ever again. So.
Of course.
That's the way things happen. But I'm a better athlete because of it. So, and I think, when you fail, those things stick with you pretty good. And you're like, well, I don't want to do that again. So you train harder and work better to make sure that doesn't happen. So
Amen.
You learn a lot more from that than you do from winning.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Yeah. You mentioned a couple of quick things that I wanted to touch on. One, Abominable Snow Race. They were one of the races that ended up getting canceled right at the start of the quarantine. So they had actually built the course and essentially invested all the money, and essentially no one showed up, right? Because they weren't allowed to hold the race. So I know they still have their merchandise shop online is open. So I encourage you to do some shopping there to kind of give back to them, because they took a significant monetary hit, and I hope they're still around in 2021. And then earlier in the podcast, you mentioned something about virtual runs and not being a huge fan of them. Personally, I'm not a huge fan of virtual runs either, but I do think it's important to support the race companies that are holding virtual runs, because that's supplementing their income, right? Like if there's a company that's just doing virtual runs, I think that's different than a company that normally does real events and now can't do real events. So they're trying to stay afloat with virtual runs. So, there's a lot of options out there for what virtual runs you want to do. I'm encouraging, people to do the ones that they're normal real events that just can't currently hold their events. That way you're supporting those companies. Because I think otherwise you're sending the signal that you want more virtual runs when there's real races going on. So just my 2 cents on the topic.
I agree with all of that.
Yeah, because otherwise, they're, just like everything, people are going to try to position themselves in an advantageous position for themselves. And the coronavirus outbreak is no different, right? Like a lot of people's
been all kinds of marketing. There's so many races that have popped up that are simply for-profit races that never existed before this. And you know what? I don't have a problem even with those. They don't appeal to me. But
right, yeah.
If it gets somebody off the couch, because I'm sure there are people out there that are like that. Maybe it's kind of like anything else, like stage fright. Maybe they don't want to run around a bunch of other people, or maybe they're worried about right now. Like there was a lot of us wanting to riot because we want our racing back, and there are some people that even though they want to race, they're not going to be back for a while because of everything surrounding this coronavirus, the potential there for infection. There are a lot of people that are going to be worried about that may not come back for a while. So I think it's a good outlet for them.
Yeah.
But definitely I would say if you're going to do one, I would say, if you've done races in the past, look for those races. Like if race directors like I said, the thing with Bill Wolf, like ASR, like how they were set up.
They had the worst possible scenario imaginable.
Yes. I mean,
they canceled 24 hours before the race by basically directed to. So yeah.
Yep. Like that, like, so those, like, they obviously took a huge hit, and there are other race directors that took hits like that too. Like, obviously, like I said, with the obstacle course racing, like ASR, there's a lot more that goes into that than, you know, just a regular road race, I think.
Yes, there is. It's a lot more monetarily intensive, and I feel like the obstacle course racing does a lot more marketing. This puts a lot more money into marketing than traditional trail and road races.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree with that. And, you know, like you said, if that's what you need to stay motivated, then by all means, just go nuts. You know, like, there's a lot of people who post every single workout they do online, and not my cup of tea, but if that's what you do to keep yourself motivated, then I think it's great.
I don't do a whole lot of workouts. I'm definitely more of a runner than, you know, like, I do OCR and stuff, but I'm definitely you can tell in my performance that I come from a running background, and I'm a better runner than just obstacle specialist. But I post pretty much all of my runs get posted. And I usually do some kind of little silly fact, some random piece of information, just to kind of, you know, so it makes my post a little less annoying.
You do have some fun facts, and so I highly recommend if anyone wants to see what Gary's up to and learn random things about everything from parking meters to sloths to whatever you want, you can follow Gary Shaw on Facebook. And speaking of fun facts, let's start wrapping it up. So we have 2 guests on the podcast. So tell me one thing people would be surprised to know about you. Whoever wants to go first. Let's go with Nicole first, since we haven't heard from you.
Wow, that's a toughie. I'm a pretty open book, so I don't know that anything I'm going to say is going to be a surprise. But I think being like a massage therapist, and everyone knows I just love my yoga, and I'm a pretty happy-go-lucky, chill person. So I think it probably surprised a lot of people that I'm a metalhead. You take me to a concert, my head's whipping all over the place. I'm headbanging. I love that so much. And even on my like music playlist on some of my longer runs, I've definitely got my metal music going, and some people know that about me, but probably not very many.
All right, that's a good one. Gary, what do you got?
So it's I am what I like to refer to as just, I am a grown ass little child. I love cartoons. I try and act intellectual and sophisticated in my smoking robe and jacket and all of that with my fancy scotch or beer and act like an adult. But deep down, all I want to do is just watch cartoons.
Eat cereal and watch cartoons?
I just want to eat cereal, sugary cereal, and then watch cartoons.
All right, that's a good one. So I'm going to touch on a couple because you gave me a couple ideas. One, you mentioned yoga instructor. I've done hot yoga once, and it was I thought it was like the worst experience in the world. I was just sweating, and I couldn't, I was just dying from the heat. And because I'm an athlete, I want things to hurt. So just because, they're like, do this stretch. And I'm like, well, it doesn't hurt. I better push harder. So I'm basically doing isometric, movements in there. And
you can't force it.
I was forcing it, and I was dying. When they were finally like, all right, now lay on the back, I was like, oh, thank goodness. I'm literally about to black out. It's a terrible experience. I don't recommend that, but
they say do it 3 times before you judge.
Yeah, no, thank you. And then what was metal. So for music, growing in high school, I listened to Korn and Rammstein and Soulfly and all that stuff. And we used to go to concerts in New York City all the time because it's right down the road. And used to go to our opinion was that if you're not going to go in the pit, why are you even going to the concert, right? So I mean, I used to love going to concerts, Rise Against and Bad Religion and all that stuff.
Nice.
Which is kind of funny because some of my favorite bands, I'm on the complete opposite side of the spectrum on a lot of their views. like, but yeah, interesting. And then you mentioned Gary being a kid. I agree with that. Like, I feel very similar, right? Like my day job in the Army, right, was like running around with guns and stuff. And I feel like I've never grown out of a lot of that. So if anyone reads my biography, Ultra-OCR Man, there's a lot of random stuff in there about, just feeling like a kid at, like, even in Iraq, playing soldier, and, the obstacle course racing, I feel like, is an extension of that, where it's like we said earlier, it's like a big adult playground, and, running around, having fun, splashing in the mud. So,
yeah, happiness is Fruity Pebbles and Teen Titans Go, man.
Yeah. I still enjoy some good cartoons every now and then. So, all right, let's start wrapping it up. Gary, final shout out you want to give friends, family, sponsors, etc.
I definitely want a big shout out to United Poly Systems. They've been a big sponsor for me over the past few years. They're actually my employer. Real quick, like, what I do for a normal job is I'm the environmental health and safety coordinator for a plastic pipe manufacturer called United Poly Systems here in Springfield, Missouri, and they've sponsored me the past few years, and they're awesome to work with. As far as, like, if I need time off for racing, they've been awesome with working around that with my schedule. But also, friends and family for supporting me through all of this. Nicole has been awesome. Like, she's kind of doubles as like a life coach, nutritionist, massage therapist, all that kind of stuff. But Squirrel's Nut Butter, Honey Stinger, Orange Mud, Springfield Brewing Company. I know I feel like I'm leaving somebody out. Some Pro Compression, Sophie, however you pronounce it. Not sponsored or an ambassador for them. They just make really awesome Ranger panties.
I was about to say, I was like, did you just plug the Ranger Panty Company?
I totally
his
plugged
new babe running shorts.
But yeah, like, outside of my kilt, man, I have decided that Ranger panties, I don't know how I've lived without those.
They're essential. I mean, I wore them extensively for several years, and it was like the go-to shorts for military, whatever. It's whatever you're doing, you wear Ranger panties.
Yeah, whenever I switch to them, though, like, with the Squirrel's Nut Butter and stuff, you find out, like, okay, you rub in different areas in regular shorts than you do in Ranger panties.
True.
So you have to apply a little bit more S&B.
My wife won't let me wear them in public anymore, so I'm officially banned. So we used to do on Valentine's Day, me and one of my friends back in let's see, what year was that? Mid 2000s, so like 2000, let's say 7 to 10. Me and one of my friends used to dress up as Cupid, and we'd wear Ranger panties and like a 3/4 length shirt that was way too tight. Like, we purposely bought them too tight. And we had like angel wings. If you look through my Facebook profile pictures, you can find an old picture of us. And we would, in the morning, we go to Nashville and do a 5K race, dressed as Cupids. And we'd run hard, right? Like, I think I came in third one year, and like second one year, and then like fifth one year, right? Like, so you want to piss people off running in costume and like legitimately like beating them. that always made people mad. So we do that in the morning, and then we'd go out into Nashville in the bars and go drinking in the evening. And people thought it was a riot. And my wife would go with us. She was my girlfriend at the time, and she would take pictures. But yeah, we'd wear Ranger panties, and I'd worn my Ranger panties so much by that point that, like, they were definitely thinner than they should be. And my wife is like, "You can't wear these in public. Like, I can see through these. Like, I can make out details." And I was like, "All right, fine."
It's a good thing you brought your girlfriend along, because I'm pretty sure you would get hit on like hardcore.
I mean, people would grab our butts, and they would. We would take pictures of people all night, and they just thought it was a riot. So my girlfriend thought it was amusing too.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
But yeah. All right, Nicole, what do you got for
Pretty much, just all the people that Gary said, and just an extra shout out to Fleet Feet. They're the ones that they were kind of my go-to place when I just first moved to Springfield, and got me into running again just because of the club and who the people I met. And just from there, I just want people to know that you're just so capable, like way more than you think you are. And being in a group of people that encourage you, and even when you have bad days, you're still having fun, you're still going on. I think that's really important. And Fleet Feet was that start for me, and then just built the running community around that. Orange Mud, I know Gary said that, but that has been another family that has been super supportive of us, and Gary, of course, for pushing me way beyond what I ever thought was capable. I don't think I can do stuff. And he's like, oh, I think you should try that. And it usually works out, surprisingly, and just grateful for him in so many ways, more than I can ever say. And just lucky to be surrounded by so many friends and family. And my clients, even through all of this, not working for 5-6 weeks, they've been amazingly supportive, and just feel really lucky in so many ways.
Gotcha. Well, I hope everyone is taking their quarantine time and doing something productive with it, like you guys, as far as, this running challenge, run the date, do dumb shit challenge, whatever we want to call it. And I know personally, I've gotten some good running. I've also been doing a lot of reading. And I know with the coronavirus running around, people seem to be doing most of them just do internet research, which is not as good. I think you're better off looking at some books about like other infectious diseases, which I've kind of read through some of them in the past. You can download a bunch of them on.
That's really scary. I'm sorry.
Oh, really? So there's weird, like, oh, yeah. With the outbreak, people
scary when you can see how much they can mutate and stuff. No, thank you.
I feel like some people are like, oh, there's a virus outbreak, I want to know about everything, and other people are like, this is like, I don't want to know anything. But I've done some work with chemical, biological, radiological, nuclear units in the past, and so that kind of led me down a rabbit hole a couple years ago, where like I started researching all these diseases. And also from I had an interest in zombies, so I was like, oh, what's like the realism side of the zombie thing? Obviously, it's not real, right? But like,
well, maybe
they base.
You remember the CDC at one time did it was kind of like a campaign that was zombie ready as disaster ready.
Yep, and they did. So they
really good. Got a lot of people kind of invested in actually thinking about that type of thing.
Yeah, it was great marketing. So they use zombies, fictitious plague, as a way to market disaster preparedness. So they produced a comic book. I think you can still download it online. I have a printed out copy in the next room. It's
too funny.
Really good. Yeah. For audiobook, anyway, if anyone's interested in virus-related audiobooks, you can go to Audible. There's like there's one called Ebola. There's one called Rabid, about the history of rabies, which actually I thought was super interesting, because a lot of like the vampire and werewolf legends come from rabies backstories. Kind of interesting, right? Like the foaming at the mouth, the loss of control, the biting people, right? Those are all like things associated with werewolves and vampires, but they're actually like realistically in rabies. Also if you've ever seen rabies untreated, what it actually looks like when it's like full blown, it's like horrific, right? Like people get hydrophobia, where they refuse, they're scared to drink water, and a lot of them like die of dehydration. You can Google it. You can YouTube it if you really curious. And
if I want to have nightmares, I'll be
gonna have nightmares. Yeah. Or basically any book by Richard Preston. He's got one called Demon in the Freezer. Talks about the development of smallpox. And then my favorite virus-related book that's nonfiction is a book called Biohazard by Dr. Ken Ellebeck, who is actually a Soviet Union defector who came over from the Soviet Union, came to the United States in I think like 1990. And wrote this book about the Soviets' bioweapons program. And it is really, really good. Wow. So I highly recommend that if anyone's interested in actually hearing some factual history about viruses instead of whatever conspiracy theory Facebook is currently floating around. So that one's not on audiobook, but that would be the number one on the list. But yeah. And then other than that, more reading. I highly recommend heading over to my website and picking up some of my books off there, because they're good, because I wrote them.
Yes, they are.
So All right, we're gonna take off. Thanks again for joining us for this long episode. What do you got?
Can I just one more thing since you're talking about reading? I was gonna do one last quick plug because I'm shameless like that, but it's something for Nicole too. And you actually might be you do enough ultra type stuff that you might. I don't know if you have a subscription, but this latest issue of Ultra Running magazine that just came out, Nicole actually has an article about her Outlaw 135 win.
Oh, no way.
February. That it just came out. We actually got it in the mail, I think, yesterday. So if you want to check that out, some more light reading, a little bit lighter than zombies and rabies, if that's not your thing.
The rabies book was good. Yeah.
There is throw up and talk of poop, though, so I don't know.
Oh, good. Yeah. That's pretty good. Good stuff.
But thank you, Evan. Thanks for having us. I really appreciate it.
No problem. Thanks a lot, Evan. It's been fun. And
then other than that, Mud Run Guide, I just sent in 12 articles. So there's lots of good content coming on that. I'm not going to cite them all. So, but they're, just because there are no races going on, there's still reviews and other things to write. And, there's a bunch of documentaries that are coming out or are currently out related to OCR. So be on the lookout for Mud Run Guide. All right. We'll catch all of you later. Thanks again.
Thanks, Evan.
Thanks, Evan.